At times, we all feel lost and in search of something more. This is Cristina Dam, and this is Liberate the podcast, a podcast designed to help inspire and guide you forward through everything spirituality, creativity, art, and just giving you a sense of empowerment so that you can be powerful, be magical, and be free. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Liberate the podcast. We're bringing in today Raquelle David, who is one of our breathwork facilitators here. She's also a breathwork coach, and we're going to really get down with trauma in the body and how it's stored in the body and some tips and tricks for manifestation. So welcome, Raquelle.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So I always like to start understanding a little bit about how you got into breath work, right? Mm-hmm. Or whatever modality somebody does, right? Yeah. And then I want to get in, dive into, there's so much to talk about the body and trauma and the way things are stored and how breath work can facilitate that release.
Yeah, for sure. So I got into breath work, well, really it was coming out of a really intense breakup.
Okay.
And it was one of those breakups that I think really led me to that kind of dark night of the soul experience.
Okay.
And I had previously gone through other like heartbreaks and other, experiences in life which should have been a lot like darker. Okay. But for some reason, this breakup with this partner was just really so devastating, and it triggered a lot of stuff from childhood, but I didn't know it at the time. I just thought, God damn, that guy is just like the worst in the world. How dare he abandon me? How dare he do this? And I feel like so shallow and just so worthless. And I was just in tears every day and going into therapy once a week for months, just crying.
Wow.
And just unleashing and just going, I don't know, like I knew that the breakup kind of facilitated it, but it wasn't the root cause of it. Mm-hmm. And so part of that journey for me was really kind of hitting rock bottom, finding a way for me to move through what I was feeling. And I, did a lot of meditating. I had been meditating since I was like a teenager. Wow. So meditation for me was actually something that I practiced, but it wasn't enough.
Yeah.
It didn't like move the needle with what I was going through.
You needed something different.
I needed something different.
And at certain times that might have been enough for certain circumstances, or talk therapy could have been enough for certain circumstances, but sometimes you need something different. You need something more.
Exactly. I did. I was kind of yearning for that thing that could pull me out of it and help me kind of really understand what I was going through. And I did a lot of classes. Mm-hmm. I did some sound healing. I went to Reiki. I went to sound baths. I tried pretty much everything. I kind of dabbled, right?
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until I did my first breathwork class, thinking that we were just going to be doing like Kundalini yoga, like just sitting there and just breathing. And I didn't know what I was getting myself into.
Yeah, because that's true. A lot of people, they think that, if you've ever taken like a Kundalini yoga class or some of the breathing, it's like,
yeah.
And you think that that's what you're going to be doing, something along those lines, but it's definitely very different than that.
Exactly. And like Kundalini yoga, I think is fantastic.
I everything has its place, everybody. Like therapy has its place, meditation has its place, breath work, yoga, they all work, but sometimes this is what I'm hearing is that sometimes we need different tools to get us out of different points in our life.
Exactly. And everyone's different and everyone processes life differently.
Yeah.
So for me, when I did my first breathwork class, my first response was, this is so powerful and scary, because what's happening to my body?
Yeah.
Like, what am I tapping into? And truth be told, I actually didn't go back to breath work for a few weeks. I kind of did a class and just went, this is really intense. And I'd actually, I remember doing the class, and there was probably about 40 to 50 students in the class. So it was ultra intense because everybody's
pre-COVID times.
Yeah, pre-COVID times. Everyone's yelling and crying and screaming, and I was just going, okay, and I got that little taste of it because it allowed me to kind of tap into the place I go to when I meditate. And quite often I say breath work is like meditation on a freeway, which Jay Bradley says a lot. And it's so true because, you're getting to that point a lot quicker. So you're getting to that point that would sometimes take 20 or 30 minutes in deep meditation to get to. So for me, it was kind of like recognizing that this modality was actually, doing something beyond what I was used to. It was effective.
Yeah.
And so it took me a while to go back. And then eventually I did. And I kept up my practice like once a week. And, it's really funny because whilst what led me to that practice was really getting through this breakup. But what had actually happened was through like practicing breath work, every other facet of my life changed.
Yeah.
Like my finances improved, my self-esteem and self-worth improved. I was attracting better people into my life. More opportunities were coming, more abundance was flowing. And like I could not deny that it was breath work because that was the only thing that I changed.
Wow.
And so for me, I was like, wow, this really like works.
You're like, sign me up. I need to teach this to other people.
On a deep and profound level. And I was like, I have to share this because, at the end of the day, you're just lying there and you're breathing. So anybody can do it.
Yeah.
Right? Like all you have to do is lie there and breathe. And I'll be honest, like the first like few minutes of breath work does feel like work.
Yeah.
But then after that, it's like you're just like reconnected to who you truly are. So that's kind of how I got into it and essentially how I decided to teach it.
Wow.
So, and every day I'm learning, every class I teach, every breathwork practice that I do, I'm constantly learning and growing, and no breathwork like practice is ever the same.
Yeah.
So, which is a beautiful thing, right? Because
and then you have all those different facets that somebody's working through or working on, or yourself, that it's shifting. It's giving this ability or this life force or this energy to shift all these areas of your life.
Yeah.
And I think that that's important to kind of retouch on, is the fact that you were going and exploring for one thing, but then everything changed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We often get so fixated on the problems in our life, right? Or that one thing, that dark cloud that's looming over us. But just by taking a little bit of effort, one day a week, right?
Yeah, 1 day a week, yeah. Yeah.
All of a sudden this shifted and that started feeling lighter, but all of these other things shifted because as we raise our vibration, as cliche as it may sound, or as we are just operating differently, everything cannot exist the same.
Yeah.
You know? And so that this is what, for those that are watching and listening, this is what breath work can do for you. Coming and doing a regular practice. Some people say, okay, some people want to do change and they say, okay, they think about change being just like working out and like physical or this, and that they have to go every day or they have to do a meditation practice every day. And sometimes that's so exhausting to hold yourself to such a regiment that it's even just about 1 day a week, laying down and breathing. Yeah. With intention though.
Exactly.
With focus.
Exactly.
And with effort.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree 100%. And I think it's like anything else, like working out, like as you say, and there's part of you that resists it because the big thing about a breathwork practice is that you are going to meet yourself, right? And what's going to happen is that you're probably going to feel stuff. Yeah. And I think a lot of times, like, we don't want to do that because we just want to always focus on feeling good. We always want to focus on like what's going to bring me pleasure and happiness. And that's great. But sometimes we just have to process what we're going through or that we've been holding on to from the past. And a lot that comes up in breath work is stuff that we have stored subconsciously that we've kind of moved through, and it's a survival instinct. It is a trauma response to be able to kind of suppress the emotion and not deal with it in the moment because we're focused on survival. And that's why a lot of people that have suffered from childhood trauma get so much out of breath work, because it's a real opportunity to tap in to all of that stuff that we've been storing. And more often than not, it's this kind of subconscious or unconscious mind that's withholding, you know, that trauma response.
Okay.
And so those stagnant kind of energies sit in the body and do come up during breath work. And so it's not uncommon for memories to flash in your mind, or for moments that you didn't feel were that carried a heavy emotion at the time, but that memory's popped up for you to process because perhaps as a survival mechanism, in order to cope, you've had to suppress that emotional response
for so long, right?
For so long.
And sometimes it's not even about people trying to feel good, it's about people just distracting themselves from not feeling at all.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, stay busy. I gotta do this, and you know, like, or let me just mind numb myself on TV or alcohol or whatever else it may be. And, you know, but it needs to be processed, otherwise nothing changes, right? If you want stagnation, that's fine. But I think that people want evolution. They want shifts.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the trauma in the body, and you know, you started going down that a little bit with breath work, and how some of these images can come up and the different stuff. So
I mean, trauma is never the event that happened to you, it's the emotional response to the event that happened to you. So a lot of people say, well, I haven't been through trauma, you know, because they haven't been, you know, through a disastrous moment in their childhoods or in their adult lives that they can pinpoint to. But again, trauma is just an emotional response to what happened to you. So if you had a high emotional reaction to something that happened to you, say at school, you know, that is trauma. And you're going to carry that, and it's going to, you know, if you haven't processed it in a healthy way or allowed yourself to process it, it's going to sit within the body. So that emotion is going to, that energy, because emotion is energy in motion. So it's sitting within the body and it's stored there. And usually it can kind of, and when you do breath work, sometimes you can actually feel where in the body it's sitting as you're breathing. Cool. So and if you look at your, you know, your chakras, quite often that energy is stored in the most appropriate chakra point. But I mean, it could be stored in any part of your body, and you're like, oh, okay, I really need to work on moving that out. So that kind of stagnant energy is going to be there, and we can do with breath work a lot of energy release work as well.
Do you have people like cry and yell and scream in yours too?
I mean, even like my first in-person class at the new studio last week was so fun, because, you know, I really love it when students really go for it and have that kind of primal yell. Because that primal yell actually is the avenue to meet your emotional center. So being able to kind of just go for it in the yell song connects you to your emotions. And what that does, it's kind of like taking the lid off, you know, and letting it kind of flow. So it like gives you like that permission. It's like, okay, after that, you just screamed, like you're now connected. And now you can cry, laugh, whatever comes up.
Whatever comes up,
And we don't live in a society that allows us to do that. You know, somatic healing and somatic release is part of the breathwork practice, but it's also part of our, you know, human biology. You know, a natural response to trauma is somatic release. Is actually moving the body, shaking it, and do you know what I mean? And so quite often when we go through that kind of psychological trauma, particularly, and this is what's really interesting about our nervous system response, because there are two automatic nervous system response, our parasympathetic and sympathetic. And our sympathetic is our fight or flight, like, nervous system response, which you can't control. Because it just it happens in the body. Your body just reacts because we have to survive. And so back when we were like, cave people, that nervous system response was for literal survival. Yeah. It kind of took over the body. It created chemicals in the body that allow us to physically get out of danger and survive. And then as adults in the 21st century, like how often do we come across like a lion in the wild or a grizzly bear? You know what I mean? And so psychological fear triggers that nervous system response. Yeah. So your boss telling you, hey, you did a really bad job on that, sales. Come into my office in 5 minutes. Hearing that triggers psychological fear that is equivalent to physical danger. Yeah. So we're telling the body that we are in fight or flight. And so what we haven't quite figured out as human beings is how to regulate that automatic nervous system response. And a lot of people go through life kind of being at the mercy of that. And some people live their life in fight or flight indefinitely.
Yeah, well, because they're constantly
like, looking at their phone and, waiting for something bad to happen.
I feel like when people have high anxiety, they're constantly in that state because they're not trusting that everything's going to be okay. Yeah. And that puts them constantly on edge, waiting for the next shoe to drop, if a situation happens, something to go wrong, whatever the case may be. But so breath work really, all of you've shared a little bit about how going through this process of breathing and the different primordial yells and different things that go on with it, but it has people activate old images, thoughts, feelings, and even physically where spaces are lodged, maybe that comes in and where they feel their knee getting cramped up or something else happening, right? And you notice all of this and you started to see all of the correlations to trauma and how this has helped you through some of your own trauma, right? That's how it all started. Yeah. But you also shared how there's tips and tricks for manifestation, you mentioned. Yeah. So can we talk a little bit about that too?
Yeah, that's the fun part of it, I think, because if I could, leave any kind of legacy behind with the work that I do in breath work, it is to instill this absolute confidence that you are the master of your life, right? No matter what happens around you, you create your life. And if we can just take our individual powers back and be really radically responsible for that, I mean, the whole world would change, right? Yeah. And we would live such fulfilled lives. And I think what comes with that is this ability to kind of get excited and go, oh, I create my own reality. Ooh, I like that. But then at the same time, it's this kind of ingrained fear that I don't know what I'm creating, or I'm not worthy enough to have what I really want, or there's so many blocks in front of me, or such and such person told me that I couldn't, therefore I can't. So with that comes, and this is the really unique part about being human, is that we have a psyche, we have a critical mind who also is there to help us survive. Yeah. But then also is there to, really kind of interfere with the process of manifesting, essentially. I guess in a nutshell, without getting too deep, but in a nutshell, our subconscious mind was formed by the age of 7 or 8, and it controls 95% of the thoughts and actions that we do in our daily lives. And so a lot about manifesting is kind of like, how do we access the subconscious mind to really kind of pull at the root of these core beliefs that we might have when we have that reaction of going, okay, I'm the master of my destiny, I'm the creator of my life. What are all these thoughts and belief systems that I have that contradict that? Yeah. And so they all sit in the subconscious mind, which means they aren't conscious to you. Yeah. And if you knew them, you'd be like, I don't know if I agree with that.
Yeah, you'd be removing them, altering them, doing that.
Yeah. And so in breathwork, a lot of it is these feelings that come up that we have to really question and have to really kind of push through and really allow them to pass. And feeling is emotion. I mean, it's tied to energy at the same time. So really kind of allowing I call it kind of the onion layers to kind of, you know, strip off, because again, all of those beliefs that don't really help you manifest were put there out of fear to help you survive. And now we're at a point in our adult lives where a lot of it is childhood stuff.
We don't need it anymore.
We don't need it anymore. We can reparent ourselves. But to answer your question about manifesting, for me in breathwork, it really is about those onion layers. It really is about kind of moving through those subconscious limiting blocks and beliefs, because the reality is we only stand in our own ways of getting what we want. There's no one else, really. There's no greater being that's coming down and going, you shall not have this. In fact, it's the opposite. The whole universe wants to conspire in giving you what you want. And I think if you can wake up in the morning and be inspired by a great idea, or be inspired by great abundance, or even just want a brand new car and get really joyful about that, that is something that your soul craves and desires. And the fact that you can have that conscious thought and have that feeling tells you that that's possible. It wouldn't enter your mind and you wouldn't have a good feeling about it unless it was entirely possible. So I really encourage my clients and students to really kind of tap into that feeling, because when we live in that vibration, we're actually, you know, following law of attraction, and we're actually bringing those, you know, experiences to us. And that's how powerful we are. In breathwork practice, when we're stripping back the onion layers and we're getting to the juicy parts of who we truly are, what happens is that our manifesting strength becomes so much more powerful.
Well, and there's a lot less resistance, and there's an access and connection to your truth, right?
Yes.
So then you're more aware of what you truly want, right? Instead of artificial. I think a lot of people have a misconception if they're leading from fear or they're leading from wounds, they feel that maybe they want or desire something that really isn't their true want or desire, but it's in order to maybe be perceived the stronger or more this, because there's a weakness or there's a core issue that's going on there because of a childhood wound. Like, I need to prove to everybody I'm smart enough, or I'm this enough, or, you know, that I am good enough, so I have to have these things or these whatever. Yeah. But were those really the desires? Yeah. Right? So I think that's hitting in like almost 3 different ways. It's releasing the trauma, connecting to your truth, and raising and creating that vibrational vortex that you're saying. So I think that, you know, it's like a triple whammy of manifestation.
I love it. Triple whammy. That, like, we should like trademark that. No, I think you're absolutely right. It's like finding that point to which we're truly connecting to who we are, and therefore can kind of like toss away the bullshit of life and be like, does this truly make me happy? Does it bring me joy? But yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And, you know, I was going to say another thing with manifesting, which I'm actually working on a breathwork technique for manifesting, which I'm going to launch very soon. And
cool.
I'll be doing it here for the first time.
Look out. And then we'll be doing it. We're working on all of our kinks in live stream, but we'll be going We have people that tune in from all over the world. So, you know.
Yeah, I'm really excited to share it, because I've been like doing a new practice that I think is quite powerful. But I wanted to kind of say with that is really about the heart connection. I truly believe that our hearts are so much more powerful. They are scientifically more powerful than our minds. Yeah. And I think there's a misconception when it comes to manifesting. We all think that we have to do it with our heads. It's like if I concentrate really, really hard and I can get what I want. But it's not that at all. In fact, your heart is the channel to manifesting.
You enjoying this so far? Did you forget to subscribe? Make sure to do so. It takes 2 seconds. Just press that little button, the red one. You know the one. Just press it, little like. All right, enjoy the rest of this content.
And if you haven't tapped into the power of your own heart, and that I know that sounds kind of metaphysical and trippy and esoteric, but I'm talking about, like, you know, every single person across the globe. My question is, if you haven't tapped into your heart, then how do you expect to manifest? There is absolutely no way it's going to, yield those results for you.
Yeah.
So that's why what I love about breath work is that we all come out of the womb breathing.
Yeah.
It's the first thing we do, and anybody can do it, right? Anybody can do breath work. I think the challenge is really kind of being open to your own heart.
Yeah, and then a lot of trauma blocks or puts shields on it, you know, whether it's an adult breakup or whether it's a painful experience from childhood and probably everything in between that's been stacking the deck on that, right?
Exactly.
People have experience after experience, and before they know it, it's like a fortress is guarding their heart, and they're not, feeling, living, loving. And if you don't tap into that, it's like, yes, you can force things to happen, and things can happen maybe a little bit in your life. So it's not like you can't create anything, right? But it's like, it's going to feel like a struggle.
It's going to, and you're going to feel out of alignment.
Yeah.
So those feelings of happiness and joy and ecstasy that you crave when you're manifesting are not going to become a reality if you get those kind of nice dangly things that you're kind of like using your mind for.
Yeah.
So I think the big thing with manifesting is, yes, you can do it with your breath, absolutely, but it's really about tapping into the power of your own heart.
Yeah.
To kind of, because it is, I mean, like scientifically, your heart, is 10,000 times more powerful than your brain. Its electromagnetic field is like 60 times wider than any other part of your body.
It has like 40% neurocells, so it actually has its own mind.
I mean, exactly. Yeah. And I always say, like, when you walk into a room, the first thing people feel is your heart. That's how powerful we are. And so I really encourage, with this new technique that I'm doing, it's really about, well, how do we access that power for manifesting? And we can do it in the breath, because remember, our breath, the breath work that I teach, which is kind of closer to holotropic, is really kind of looking at how we breathing into our bodies. When we do the deep belly breaths, we do then the heart breath, and then we release. And so really kind of focusing on, well, how are we opening up our hearts in that kind of breath practice?
Yeah.
So it is kind of an exciting modality. It's also, I think, for people that practice breath work a lot, it is a way of life. Much like doing yoga, Pilates, meditating, Kundalini. So, I actually want to see breath work kind of more mainstream, because it has been so incredibly powerful in my life. And, if it's not for you, it's not for you. But I know that if something's worked for me, that there's going to be people out there that it works for too, right?
Yeah, and lots of people love your classes, and people rant and rave about the transformation that they have in breath work. Which kind of leads me to, you're kind of getting the carrot on the stick to people, letting them know that you're going to be doing manifestation breath work and other things like that. But you're very active on social media. You also post a lot of different inspirational messages and different things like that. Where can they follow you or find you?
Yeah, so my Instagram is Love Breathwork, so at Love Breathwork. I try. I feel like social media is kind of where we all have to be. But I also love the community, particularly Instagram and TikTok. I think that there's like an opportunity for, during these times to kind of really share meaningful, tools, resources, information, and have that sense of like you are not alone in your journey. So whatever you're going through and you are looking for a healing modality or just looking for more opportunity to be introspective, or maybe it's a more spiritual path, whatever it is for you, I think like having a sense of community is really important. And that's why I love like Liberate, because like we can all come together, whether it's virtually or in person, and really kind of share that journey, because it's really important, I think, particularly right now where it can feel quite isolating.
Absolutely. And our breath work in person that is here is outdoors. So, for anybody that has any, feelings about the mask with breath work and the different things like that, in a safe space, it's outside, you can breathe, you can be free, but also, building and knowing that no matter where you're at in the world, you can tap in and have the community and have the virtual classes. And people have been loving them. I wasn't sure how it would really go when we first, we always did a lot of our meditations virtual pre-pandemic. Yeah. But then when everything got transferred to it, and then it was everything, I was like, how are people going to really relate to this? But it seemed like more and more people that had only been the people that were in-person people tried it out. And then they were like, oh, I actually kind of like this. I like the comfort of my own home. I like feeling safe. I like feeling like, But. Yeah,
and you can really have that feeling kind of safety, and that I don't know, that's something quite sacred about being in your own space. In person is equally as powerful, if not more powerful. But I agree with you. It's like, but with the yell songs, which sometimes if you're in a classroom, you don't want to. Some people don't feel comfortable yelling.
Yeah.
But at home,
you can be like, ah!
You can do whatever you want because you're you're muted, and
throw a pillow over you if you have an apartment and neighbors. But you still have.
So I've been living in the mountains for the past few months, and
oh, nice.
I've been doing a lot of yelling because no one can hear me, which is also a little bit kind of concerning at the same time. But I can just yell and just be like, for the first time in my life, just be totally like free to like really yell, and it's such a powerful thing. And I just I think everyone's experience during the active breath work is different, and it's so specific to kind of what you're processing or what you're going through in that moment. So having a sense of community where you can kind of share those experiences and insights and light bulb moments, and and I remember like leading someone through breathwork during the pandemic, and we went through, and what I love about kind of teaching from or learning from Jay Bradley was that he incorporated HYPNOTHERAPY meditation into his classes to really kind of focus on like letting go and forgiveness as part of the breathwork practice. And I was leading this young man through a class, and we got through the HYPNOTHERAPY, went through the meditation, and at the end of it, he's like, oh my God, I literally let go of a 13-year-old kind of grudge that I had towards somebody.
Wow.
That I've been holding on to and festering. And I felt in that moment, I just let it go. It's like gone, and I'm okay. And I'm like, wow. And that was like one class. So like,
but when people are ready to have that forgiveness, it can manifest, and it can happen. It can be super powerful for people.
Yeah, and I just like, I love hearing that, because it's like, it reminds you of, not just how powerful breathwork is, but how powerful we are as human beings to lie down and breathe.
For you to create the space
for 30
too.
minutes. Yeah. And like, and to get to that point, like we truly are masters of our own, destiny. And
we just live in the forgetting.
Yeah. But
so we're constantly forgetting that we're the masters, and if we just, we need sometimes classes and leadership and guidance to remind us to remember.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that just sums up like the meaning of life right there, doesn't it?
Remember who you are.
Yeah. We have to, but we also like we come here having forgotten to remember, and then along the way we forget, and then
and over, and we could be doing good for like 6 months, and then suddenly we're in another situation, and we're like,
how did I get here?
And we realize that we need to seek out tools and support, and I think that anybody that's listening, that we're designed to do things as pactual, like we're a pactual species. You're not supposed to be just isolated on a mountain by yourself. You can do it on times, right? But like, it's okay to come and want to do group classes and workshops and events, and to have support from people on a one-on-one basis, and that, because that is how we all get through things.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It is. And you know, going back to that kind of community, like no matter what you're going through, just know that there are other people either going through that exact same thing or that have gone through it. Yeah. And no matter where you are in life, particularly living in this time, you can find that community. You can, and it's there.
It might not look or feel the same as it did before, but change is good.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I would say, like, if you're listening to this or watching this and you're going through something, like, reach out and like go to a class, find a facilitator, a healer, a coach, somebody that, you know, your soul kind of speaks to you when you kind of experience their teachings or their class, and just know that there is a community around that, you know, person or place that is going to give you all of the kind of tools that you need, because no one should go through it alone, no matter what it is. And even just, I mean, I'm not talking about anything that, I mean, look, for me it was a breakup, right?
Yeah.
But
I mean, for your client, it was a 13-year grudge from whatever it may be. I mean, it could be different for everybody.
Exactly.
It can just be you're, you know, overwhelmed or overworked or lost track of what your true heart wants. It can be a whole combination of little things that you can't even pinpoint, right?
Yeah, and that's really interesting, because it raises something else that I wanted to mention with that. It's like, sometimes it doesn't have to be like a major thing or event that makes one kind of want to go on this journey. It could just be a repetition of emotion. So if you always find yourself in a friendship or relationship where you have pangs of jealousy, or if you always find that you have feelings of being betrayed or abandoned, like, look for those cyclical emotions, because that's teaching you something. It's saying to you, hey, there's something to work on here. Yeah. There's something to kind of really investigate as to why this keeps coming back up. And like, the first thing you can do when you notice that is, like, send yourself a lot of love and gratitude for recognizing it, for going, this is a cyclical thing. It keeps popping up in my life. I'm not a bad person for having these experiences. These experiences that elicit emotion are teachers of mine, and I'm going to go and investigate why this keeps happening or why I keep feeling this way. Yeah. And that's the biggest indicator, I think, to something that needs to be kind of, you know, explored and worked on.
Oh yeah, anytime there's a pattern. Yeah. You know? And then taking yourself out and not making yourself be blamed for it, because you're running an unconscious script, right? You know, and a lot of that is, if it's your 6-year-old self running the show, like, you're doing the best you can from that perception that you had way back then, you know? Like, you don't have to keep on, you don't have to be like, oh, there's something horribly wrong with me. No, there's something that no longer works for you that you want changed and to be different, but there's nothing wrong with you. Yeah. You're just living a certain way. You're having these certain responses that aren't leading to your most fulfilled happiness. So they can change, you know, because somebody else's those ways of going could lead to their happiness, right? You know,
exactly. Yeah, 100%. And there's a really incredible writer in the business that I love, Meg LaFoe, who said to me a few years ago, you know, what keeps you alive during your childhood, which allows, like, what allows you to survive during your childhood is going to end up killing you as an adult.
Oh, very true.
And I was like, oh, I didn't. And then I like thought on it, and I was like, oh, yeah, because it can't work. It can't work as an adult because you're not a child anymore. So particularly those that have gone through any kind of, you know, childhood trauma or abandonment.
Yeah, like dissociation and you know, having that as a way of a coping mechanism, or being able to, you know, feel like they're hypersensitive to every little thing that happens because maybe they grew up in an addict or alcoholic house, and so they didn't know what type of parent they were going to get. So they're like this, but that hyper-vigilance is like in a relationship or something else is going to destroy everyone, right? You know, like it's like, you know, so I like that. So whatever made you survive as a child would kill you as an adult.
Yeah,
I mean, it's true.
It's very kind of, you know, straight to the point. But I think there's something really kind of quite magical about that concept of going, oh, I don't have to carry, you know, these patterns or these belief systems or, you know, this way of living. Because it worked for me as a child. Like, it helped me survive. I got through it okay. Yeah, I'm alive, but I don't need to do it as an adult. I can let go. I can let go of that, of those mechanisms that I don't need anymore. Yeah, and start to not only reparent yourself, but also look at ways to kind of really open up your consciousness to a different way of living, to a different, you know. And I think that's one of the most challenging things, because when we feel stuck, and I think feeling stuck is probably such a common human feeling in today's age. I think it's very rare to come across somebody that would say to you, oh, I hate my life, I'm depressed, I'm like suicidal. Obviously, if you have those thoughts and feelings, you need to go and get professional help, because that's severe. But most people fall into this kind of like, I feel really dissatisfied or really stuck. Yeah. And that's how you know that life's not meant to be lived like that. Yeah. That's not normal, to feel like you're going through the motions. Or that you're going through quicksand. You're going through the motions. And so, you know, I've done a lot of healing work with clients, obviously using breath work, but also looking at like their shadow and doing shadow work, which we don't have to talk about today, but it's really interesting to kind of look at, you know, going through that experience in life and knowing instinctively that life wants to offer you more. Yeah. And you feel, and you know that, I think you're right in the pit of your stomach. It's like, you know that there is kind of higher purpose, and there is, you know, real ecstatic joy in life. And so I think, and for me, I think I did that myself. I was like, most of my, you know, teens, 20s, most of my adult life was like this kind of going through the motions and just going, I'm having a minor win here, a minor win there, but most of the time I'm just full of high functioning anxiety and just feeling like I'm just barely getting by and, you know, not really like living my life. So yeah, and for me it was those cyclical relationships. Yeah. Those people that I was bringing into my life, mirroring my trauma, my wounds. And that's what kickstarted this journey. And without that, I probably would have kept coasting along. So then it can be your beautiful blessing that got you here. And that's another thing to kind of touch on, is sometimes we think that we're being pulled away, or that we're off, or that we backtracked somehow in life, or however that perception is. But sometimes if you just embrace that those patterns or those people or those pains that happen, maybe that was exactly what needed to happen to have you say, all right, I'm ready to shift and change so the rest of your life can feel empowered and free and fulfilled. Then there was no holding on too long at all. It was the perfect recipe to get you to that bottom, like you might have said. And some people it's a bottom, some people it's wherever, but to facilitate and say, I'm ready to search around and find what works for me, and then boom, you know? Yeah. But I hope that everybody that is tuning in today is at least curious about breathwork. If you haven't, you know, done it already, you should definitely try it out. Raquelle does some breath work with us at least once a week. You know, we'll see about adding some other classes as well. Plus, you know, check out her social handles, and
see if there's other classes, events, or one-on-one work that you could do with her. But try it. And if you've done breath work with somebody else and you haven't gotten the same kind of experiences that maybe were shared here, maybe it's all about also the facilitator, the holding the space, and the incorporating some of the other stuff together with it. Just like not every breathwork session is the same, even with the same person, right? Definitely, like you can go to different hairdressers and you can have a really good haircut and you can have a really bad haircut. So, don't knock it if you have had a experience and you haven't had the one that was as powerful too.
Yeah, that's so true. There's so many different styles of breath work. I mean, I think breath work in general, no matter what style you're doing, is going to be beneficial for you.
Oh yeah, you're breathing. You're breathing in life. You're changing.
But yeah, find the style that suits you. And for me, like, this style suits me.
Oh no, it works. It's great.
I think it works. I mean, I agree with you in terms of like trying out, and seeing what feels good, right? Like that's the beauty of it. Like, there's so many.
That's the beauty, and but seek, and stick with what works, and maybe even just once a week you could have that change, or maybe you need a little bit more support for a period of time, but. Try us out, follow, like, share, let us know what you think about this video. The more you share, the more you like or comment, the more other people can find this information. If there's somebody that you think needs to hear this message, or they're going through that kind of just repetitiveness in life, or just going through the motions, maybe this will be the thing that steers them on the compass towards happiness and fulfillment.
Yeah. That's very exciting.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure, and thanks for watching. And definitely, as you say, like ask lots of questions. I love answering questions about breath work. I'm obsessed with it. Like, the more questions I get asked, the better, because everyone's experience is different, right?
Yeah.
I just think it's so powerful, and very excited about this community that you've built, and I'm glad to be here in person.
Thank you for being part of it.
Yeah.
Until next time, everybody, have a beautiful day or evening or wherever you are, whatever that is for you. All right. Bye. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this conversation, please like it, subscribe, and share it with your friends. If you want to hear more about what we have going on and happening online or in the neighborhood, check out liberateyourself.com and sign up for our mailing list. Also, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Liberate Yourself. It's YouRself, URSELF. Until next time, be powerful, be magical, and be free. Hi, everybody. I'm Cristina, founder of Liberate. This is our mascots, Miss Piggy and Mr. Chew. Liberate is like the Willy Wonka chocolate factory for spirituality. You might wonder what the heck that is. And so basically, Liberate is a place of sheer magic, activating and reigniting that magic into you so that you can live your fullest potential and most fulfilled life. When you walk through the door, you're gonna see magic everywhere you look. You look down and you see a crystal floor made with over 10,000 pounds of crystals. You say that's a lot, but I know I laid them and had to do numerous trips to the crystal store to buy more and more crystals. There's all of these beautiful magical gemstones that are activating and creating healing from the beneath and the surface. You see the tree of life when you first walk in. You go upstairs and every room has its custom sacred geometry mural in it. And then you notice that each of the rooms are labeled with different names of deities or archangels from different traditions and religions from all over the world. This is Liberate. Liberate is a space of union. Liberate is a space of creativity. Liberate is a space of expansion. And we're here to help heal you, transform, and help you rediscover yourself.